Welcome back, folks. My name is LastKnownMeal, and today we're going to be talking about Gothic 1 Remake, or just Gothic Remake in general. I'm going to be honest, this trailer caught me a little bit off guard because I couldn't do it before I was out of town. And as soon as I was leaving my house and I was in the vehicle just going away, I get notification that, Gothic received a new trailer, so it was kind of a bummer that I couldn't talk about it before, but there are a lot of things which I want to talk about today. First off, going from the news that Gothic 1 Classic is going to have its release on Nintendo Switch, and that's amazing because Gothic Classic is an old game. It came out in 2001. And because it's not so demanding, it can be relatively, of course, not easy, but it can be ported onto different consoles, and it's not going to be that problematic because, well, the graphics are not the most modern, so it's not going to take away all of the power from your handheld or generally from consoles. So it gives developers more leeway to release that on other platforms as well. So having a game like Gothic on Switch on your handheld device is honestly amazing. And as some of you know, this channel started with a Gothic 1 playthrough. I am a huge fan of Gothic. Gothic 1 is my favorite game of all time. And to be now talking after 10 years about Gothic Remake is honestly a little bit surreal. Now let's go back to the trailer itself. So first off, as I said before, trailer showcases Old Camp. Old Camp, for all of you that haven't played the game, is one of the most important locations in the first game. It's most likely, if you're a new player, going to be the first or one of the first locations you're going to visit and get the hang of the, the entire zone and the area and, of the entire Valley of Mines, because the Valley of Mines is going to be that location in Gothic 1 game. So now, one of the first things we can see is the color palette. Gothic playable teaser that we've had a few years ago, which they kind of tested the ground to see like what people like, what people don't like, completely missed the overall color palette. It was too colorful and it was just looking like a standard RPG, but not the Gothic that we used to. And you have to realize one thing for all of the people who are not in the Gothic community is extremely tough and demanding, which is okay because in the past we've had other developers take Gothic and turn it into something which wasn't Gothic at all. For example, Arcania, which I'm trying to forget, but it's impossible. And one of the main complaints on all of that was just color palette. Gothic 1 is not that colorful. It's actually kind of depressing, and it has a lot of these, how they say, grayish, brownish, almost faintly greenish tones which we've had in the first game. And right now, in the teaser trailer, finally they have nailed how it's supposed to look color palette wise. So at least when it comes to that, I am completely satisfied because it's supposed to look this grayish, it's supposed to look depressing a little bit because, that's the world of Gothic 1. So one of the first things we see is this guy, and I'm not sure what his idea is supposed to be besides actually presenting the old camp in general, because I just couldn't figure out which character this is. Now, judging by his clothes, he is a digger, and you have to realize in Gothic you have a few factions, or well, you have 3 factions you can join. The one in the old camp, the one in the new camp, and the one in the swamp camp. But each faction is somehow separated by different stages or different hierarchy, and when it comes to the old camp, usually these kind of clothes are going to be worn by diggers who work in the mines. Not all of them, but some of them. Of course, this guy could be someone who has spent a lot more time in the old camp, so he's not going to be your classic digger who's just going to be working in the mine, but he's going to have a little bit more freedom, but he's still not fully tied to a certain faction, at least not here. And one of the first things we see is that he is actually approached by the guards. And guards usually have somewhat of the highest hierarchy when it comes to old camp in general, because you have diggers, or well, people living in the old camp, then you have the shadows, and then you have the guards which are guarding the ore barons, and they're going to be the top brass you're going to be meeting much later in the game. It's also interesting because old camp in general, it's set in different stages. So if you are not a guard or not even a shadow, they're not going to allow you to go into a castle, especially into some of the more private areas of the map itself, and that's going to be somewhat similar with every single other camp, but not fully. We're gonna talk about that in the future. So the guards here have the relatively similar armor that we got used to from Gothic 1, but it does seem some of the changes have been made to make it a little bit more modern, because at the same time this is going to be a remake done in Unreal Engine, so some of the things have to be changed. Now, as soon as the opening shot starts, we can see that the layout of the old camp is going to be pretty much like we got used to it. So the entrance is going to be very much similar. The path on the right and the path below and the path to the castle is going to be like we got used to from the old camp in the classic game, which is nice, especially because they haven't changed a lot. One of the biggest complaints people had in the past, especially when it comes to the playable teaser, is that they added a certain new area, which is basically at the start of the game and between like the old camp itself, which it's supposed to extend the game, but it kind of broke the original playthrough of the classic game and how you're supposed to reach that old camp. And I'm gonna be honest, I wasn't a huge fan of that starting zone. It was okay, but maybe it was just totally different, so I just couldn't get used to it. So hopefully when it comes to that, it's going to be changed, but I do believe they said that that starting zone is going to be reimagined again, so it's not going to be like it was in the playable teaser. So this guy in general who's walking into a camp, I'm gonna be honest, he feels a little bit too free for this, especially because he is not really a part of the shadows or the guards or anyone else, so his fate is going to be sealed if he is caught, and we're gonna get to that. So he steals this guy's apple, and I mean, he's not gonna be doing too much, because you also have to realize that causing trouble in the old camp is going to be a little bit problematic for you because of the AI in the game. Now, one of the next things we see is actually the area just left of the entrance to the old camp, which again stayed the same. Now, obviously, if we see the walls, if we see the houses, they're going to be a little bit taller and bigger and grander than they were in the first game, which is understandable because, well, the original game had its limitations, but even with that, they still managed to show scale, which wasn't really easy to do at that time, especially with, you know, technology and the engine they had at the time. But now that's going to be a little bit easier, and I'm glad they're gonna be going in that direction. Next thing that this guy does is actually something that you're gonna be doing as a player. So there is a way to sneak around, and you have to learn that, because everything in this game you have to learn in some way through a trainer. So he's gonna be entering his house, and this guy is going to see him, and that's also something which AI does in the game. If you enter someone's house and you're not invited, they're going to tell you get out. If you don't get out, and if you're caught stealing, you're going to be attacked. Now, next thing, we can see this guy getting kicked out of his house by this guard, which I do hope it's going to be a guard. I'm not sure if they changed the overall clothing and the armor of people, but generally guards usually have more of this plate and iron on them, because shadows are going to have more of the leather type armor itself. And there could be a few reasons why this guy is getting hit. Maybe he didn't pay his protection, maybe he's getting kicked out, maybe this guy is blackmailing him, but in any case, you are going to meet certain people in this game, especially guards, who will ask for protection, and if you don't pay them, well, you're going to be in a certain issue. After this guy did something which I think is incredibly brave, especially for a guy of his low status. He steals the purse of this guard, which is also something you can do in the game, is pickpocket, especially now in the remake. So he makes his way around this area, which, if you look closely at it, is going to be the location where Mud is. And Mud is going to make a return in the game. Now, for all of you that don't know, Mud is somewhat like an annoying fan in Oblivion. So if you start talking to him, Mud is going to follow you around everywhere. He's gonna keep asking you questions, and he's not going to stop until, well, you decide what you wanna do with him. Also, we have the good old kettle here, which is also something, one of the first missions you're gonna be doing in the game, getting some of the ingredients. And this is going to be the guy that's gonna be giving you food every single day. So if you want that, free food every day, that's going to be nice. Of course, there are no like food and hunger mechanics in the game, but having free food at the beginning, which is going to restore your health, is important. And again, I just want to say, when it comes to the layout, especially in this scene, like below the actual chef, it's going to be the same. Like just below, we're gonna be going into arena. So the layout again is amazing that they just kept what the original game had. So that's incredibly important. There are also going to be some scuffles here. Now that wasn't really a part of the original game, like the NPC AI wasn't really colliding with itself and, you know, fighting each other in that way. There were some moments, but not fully like this. So I do hope that maybe some of these things are going to be present in the remake itself, where certain people are gonna start hitting each other because of certain differences or whatever. But it's important for you not to get involved in that, because, well, again, AI might react in a certain way, because you can see right now the guard behind him is pulling out a weapon. And when the guard pulls out a weapon in this game, well, you're kinda, well, you're gone. Pretty much. So yeah, that happened. Yep, he basically hit him in the end. And I'm gonna be honest, I'm kind of surprised that he basically killed him in the end, because usually in this game you can knock someone out, but you don't have to necessarily finish him. Like, that's also something that might happen to you. You might just get robbed, not killed. And next up is one of the coolest areas that was in the old camp in the original game. That's the arena. In the arena, you were able to fight with different people, and you were basically the champion of the arena if you managed to destroy them all. Now, one of the things here also that we can see is that this person down here is going to be fighting a fire lizard. I don't think that in the original game you were able to do that, maybe in some version of it, but I'm gonna be honest, this is something new which has been added. Also, the arena itself has been extended, but again, it's very important that they kept the original layout of everything, because if you look at the behind the arena, you can see the locations that you know, but they just made it bigger so it fits, you know, in the remake itself. And they had to do it this way because there is no way you can remaster the original game. It's too old, it's in a different engine, so everything here had to be done from scratch. And also at the end it happened what I was telling you is going to happen. So this guard grabbed him in the back and said, "You don't think I know what you did?" And he pretty much, I think, destroyed him. Like, this guy stealing from a guard is not going to have a good time later on. So I think this trailer is nice because it shows some of the consequences and some of the decisions you can make in the game. Of course, when it comes to gameplay, that's going to be one of the most important things here. That's going to be something which makes or breaks this remake. We're not getting gameplay yet, most likely in the future, because we still don't have the exact release date. So my assumption is that we're gonna be getting Gothic Remake sometimes in 2024. I doubt we're gonna be getting this in 2023. Now that's totally okay. I have nothing against them working on it for an extra year, for as long as the final product is going to be good, because a lot of this product is going to depend and decide the future of Gothic when it comes to THQ Nordic, because right now THQ Nordic owns everything from Piranha Bytes, so they can freely decide what they want to do with it. And I'm honestly glad that they went with this remaster because, or well, remake, because I had no idea this would ever happen, especially for all of the OG fans. Having this in front of me after all of these years is, again, as I said, surreal. If Gothic 1 succeeds and it's good and it captures everything from the original cult classic, there is going to be a chance for Gothic 2 Remake, which is going to be even more amazing. But for now, I just hope that this one stays as is, especially when it comes to combat, when it comes to gameplay design, quest design, because it is incredibly important that you leave everything like it was. When it comes to how you do certain quests, when it comes to how those quests can be finished, your relationship with certain characters and decisions you can make. For that, Gothic is extremely polished, at least when it comes to the classic version, where everything, every single person in the game, it makes sense where they are and they're going to be somewhat connected with the future quests and missions you're gonna be doing. Of course, this Gothic game is gonna be coming out for PlayStation 5, Xbox Series X and S, and also PC. Now, of course, when it comes to people being kind of skeptical, you know, because, you know, you're releasing a Gothic game for consoles as well. This was a PC specific game. Are there going to be some things which are dumbed down? It doesn't necessarily have to be. If you organize UI well and the hood and everything and the key bindings, you can still maintain what Gothic was and keep it on the, the console itself, or well, the controller. And we can see that with the Gothic 1 Classic port to Switch, so it can be done. So I do hope, at least when it comes to, or it has to be, for example, inventory has to be changed, because the original Gothic inventory can become a little bit too crowded, and it can cause certain issues for people where they just cannot decide where something is and they might have trouble with it. But of course, I'm pretty sure that is going to be changed and adapted to be more modern in that sense. So that's it for today. Thank you so much for watching. I will have more Gothic videos in the future. There is also a Gothic podcast, so I'm going to leave a link for that. The developers are talking about the game, so if you want to get, to know more about it, it's definitely a huge plus. So again, hopefully this succeeds. I wish them all the best, and at the end of the day, community is going to decide if this remake is going to be good or not. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to smash that like and subscribe button for more, and also tell me down below, what are you looking forward to most, and what are your biggest fears when it comes to this installment of the Gothic franchise. Also, huge thanks to my current Patreon supporters, and this is LKM signing out, and I will see you in the next video. Bye bye.